Hello, hello to you too. live, live studio audience. Hi, my name is Rachel Silver, and I'm an Access Consciousness certified facilitator. And, oops, I'm responding to a question that I received. I actually responded in person because it came via phone call. But I got that it may contribute to someone else as well. And especially when we seem to think that we're all alone in the world, or when we seem to think. One of the things we say in Access Consciousness is thinking is stinking, which is kind of an interesting perspective, because thoughts, or having points of view, if you'd like to refer to it that way, is rather fascinating, actually. Our way of looking at things, our active participation in the universe, if you will, is creative in and of itself. Because based on our way of seeing things, we notice things that are different. We choose things that are different. Hence, there's this entire creative cycle that's followed by this reality. We call it thoughts. Access consciousness speak, we say points of views, and that thoughts and thinking is, one step down from actual knowing and knowing that we know. And one of the targets of Access Consciousness is to empower us to know that we know. And you know what? That's actually such a cool thing. Hi, Rita. It's such a cool thing because we don't generally function as if we know. We generally function as the effect of everything happening to us, rather than recognizing that our entire experience is subjective. It's based on our points of view. And as Dr. Dane here says in the Being You Changing the World book, your point of view creates your reality, because everything else is blocked out. You've got these blinders on that point you to whatever it is that you've decided is so real and true about you, whatever you're almost investing even more energy in creating. And as you do that, there is nothing that exists outside of the tunnel vision, the blinker vision, whatever you want to call it, that you have on. You don't see that there may be other things available. You don't see other possibilities. You don't look for what Dr. Dane even mentioned today in the 30-day ESB. He said the beautiful energy, was it today or yesterday? I can't remember. Everything's kind of the beautiful energy that's beneath things. So today I received a question that's very much related to my past. And for those of you who don't know, when I was in college, I was diagnosed as bipolar. I was diagnosed as severely depressed, and I was medicated. For a year, I had weekly shots of lithium. I took a whole slew of antidepressants, different doctors, or different, if I'd get moved, from one to the other, or I moved from where I went to college in Massachusetts, went back to Texas, etc. So I'd have a different caretaker, psychiatrist, often psychologist for the weekly visits, and a psychiatrist to just recommend the medicines, etc. And so this person reached out and said, I'd heard about your story from someone who had taken a foundation class with you. Hi, Idalina. Good to see you. So she said, I heard about your story, and I'd like to know what to do, because I'm in a similar situation where I've been dependent on lithium for a very long time. I was also diagnosed as bipolar. Now, caveat here, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an Indian chief. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a person, and I'm speaking to my experience. Take it with a grain of salt. Only listen to what lights you up or lightens you up. Whatever is true for you will make you feel lighter, more expansive, more relaxed. Whatever's not, won't. So don't take it as this isn't about giving you a prescription. This is what you have to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. This is actually the opposite of that. So I can tell you, I was in therapy for nearly 15 years. I think after counting a couple of weeks ago, when I was wondering about it, it ended up being about 14 or so. But that's a long time to go for weekly visits to somebody's couch. And not only that, but I remember I would go every Tuesday, and my Tuesday afternoons were blocked off. Why were they blocked off, you might want to know? No, it wasn't to get together with friends and have a good time. No, no. My Tuesday afternoons were pre planned to be depressed, to be frustrated, to scream and cry and bury my head in a pillow and feel sorry for myself, and to basically mope. I was practically incapacitated every single Tuesday afternoon after I would come back. I would schedule the therapist visit, for the psychologist visit, for as late afternoon as I could get it. And then after having the session, usually, a bit less than an hour long, whatever, I would just go out of there almost as if somebody had hit me with a, brick between the eyes, which is so interesting for me because that was my life for a very, very long time. I did not see that other possibilities could exist. I didn't see that anything else was available. I just knew that I had this stuff, whatever this stuff was that was wrong with me, all in air quotes now, that was wrong with me, that I had a problem and that I needed to work on fixing my problem, right? How many underlying assumptions, if you haven't read the How to Become Money workbook by Gary Douglas and the being that he channeled, Raz, it's absolutely fabulous. And one of the things he keeps mentioning over and over, yeah, I know, you look at it and you go, what do you mean, how to become money? It's how to become, how to be all of you, how to be more of you, and how to not put anything outside of you, really. And I love that book. And one of the things that Raz mentions over and over is, what underlying assumption do you have? What does that mean? What thought are you functioning from? What point of view is actually running your life today? What point of view are you making bigger, more real, more true than you and your awareness and your knowing and your choices and your ability to shift and change? I have CRS sometimes, which is not necessarily remembering things, all the way, you could say. But I do remember when I was in college, don't eat the orchid. That's an orchid. Leave the orchid alone. So I do remember reading a book about the Spanish Revolution called This Too Shall Pass. Now, hey, dude, seriously, man, enough. What, an orchid? I'm gonna hold the orchid if you're gonna eat the orchid. Dude. Very funny. So this too shall pass. And you'd say, what do you mean this too shall pass? How did you change from being diagnosed as bipolar, from being diagnosed as deeply depressed? And, how did things change for you? Yes, I found access in late 2010. Had my bars run for the first time when I went back to the States in 2011. I became a bars facilitator. I love the tools. And actually, I probably vomited the tools on everybody. I was the kind of facilitator at that time that would push, like, this changed my life and it's so good, you've got to do this kind of thing at other people, whether they liked it or not. Probably not the kindest thing I could have chosen. But what I got was a gift for me of quiet in my head and space. Like, if I would have scheduled bar sessions those Tuesday afternoons, for example, I doubt that I would have needed to curl up in a ball and scream cry myself to sleep. I doubt that I would have needed to withdraw from everything. I doubt that I would have tortured myself literally with all of those thoughts. So the person I spoke with today has been diagnosed and medicated for almost 30 years. That's a long time. And she reached out to me to find out, how do you get unmedicated? Like, how do you deal with this? This is wrong and I want to change it. But I'd like you to notice something. And this is so important to me, and I don't quite 100% know how to put it into words. So I'm just going to say it and take it as you will. There's nothing wrong with you. Nor was there with me, but I didn't know that. See, inherently, we're well. We are, when we're truly being, not trying to be like anybody else, but when we're truly being us, whatever the diagnosis that anyone gives us, whether it's a physical diagnosis or whether it's, something mental or whatever the case is, inherently, if we let well enough alone, we are well. But what would happen on those Tuesdays for me is that I would splash around, so to speak, in a puddle of icky feelings and thinking and going back and rehashing stories and making everything that everyone said relevant to me and reliving it and regurgitating and remasticating and trying to swallow it up again. I don't know if you guys, I love coffee and I usually drink it in, my mug. See, isn't she cute? He cute. But if you use a glass, like if you have proper Turkish coffee or something, which I also love, but you brew coffee and you leave it. You just leave it. You'll notice also at the bottom of your coffee pot, the grounds settle and the liquid stays, well, as clear as coffee can stay, on top when it's left alone. If you're busy stirring it, if you're busy making a ruckus, if you're busy rehashing and rethinking and revisiting and going back to it again and again and again and again, there's no settling to be able to have clarity. There's this churning in your head, which is one of the gifts of the access bars and the sessions. When you have a session, and this is so required when you listen to a lot of access things or when you read a lot of access books. I go to a lot of classes. I'm part of Dr. Dane here's 30-day ESB. This is round 3 that just began. I'm around a lot of energetic shifts, right? The more you're around stuff like that, the more you might consider getting your bars run, because the more settling you have. And if you've never had your bars run, and the bars are just a gentle touch on 32 different points in your head and your hands, that when you have them run, when you have them activated, it dissipates that charge, that desire to, keep stirring the pot of coffee, shit, points of view, you name it. And so you begin to have a space for your being. And when you're being that space of your being, things settle. Do you have clarity to perceive what you know, to perceive the whispers of the universe? So one of the things that I particularly got is that when we hold on to those, as Raz called them, underlying assumptions, like this particular really courageous woman had the underlying assumption that there was something wrong with her being medicated for almost 30 years. But the reason that she had chosen to get medicated in the first place was to try to be normal. Okay? The reason she chose to do things more by this reality standards was to try to fit in. And one of the things that I've noticed so much, where maybe some of us are called woo. I've seen so many different responses by people to things being called unrealistic, not fitting in, being called, too wild, too much, too. And yet notice how many kids are being diagnosed as autistic. How many kids are being, nowadays, are being called too much or way too different. What if there is no wrongness in that? What if there is an invitation in that? So a question that I heard Dr. Dane here asking a couple of days ago in one of the calls, and he particularly directed it. He said it's for everybody, but specifically directed to Jews, to Austrians and Germans, is what have I decided is wrong, or wrong with me, that actually isn't? Now, do you get that? I love that particular question, What have you decided is wrong with you that actually isn't? So if we've decided that the fact that we may start 100 projects and only finish one or two, or maybe none, that the fact that we have more energy, more exuberance, more excitement about life and living than quote unquote normal people, or as some people might say, the living dead, that's a wrongness. But what if it's not? What if it is a gift? What if we have come to this earth, to this planet, to this existence to show that something else is available and possible? Our difference, our uniqueness, isn't a wrongness. It's a difference that's a gift. And most people don't realize that. And so they'll turn down the volume on being themselves. They'll turn down the volume on what's available. They won't relish it and enjoy it and just marinate it and expand it and explore it. But what if they would? What if they could? What if they began to celebrate the difference that they are and go, wow, that's cool. It's kind of like speaking a different language. Just because the rest of the world may speak one particular language and you speak another, sure, you may reach to that to be able to communicate with them, but there is nothing inherently wrong with your way of being, communicating, seeing the world, choosing, creating at all. So where have you lost yourself by trying so hard to fit into this reality? And in Access, we speak about reality as two or more people aligning and agreeing with a point of view, or resisting and reacting to it, which makes it a sort of alignment and agreement. So there's so much available in the world when we look beyond what we've determined as real, what we've judged to be real, what we've judged to be good, bad, right, wrong, or anything else. So the gift for me over the last few years, and it's been this. So she reached out wondering, what did you do? And I said, I cannot prescribe to you step 1, step 2, step 3. It's been this kind of this blossoming, this opening, this beginning to trust myself. And it began with when I said no more. And I was already a mom at that point. I was also diagnosed for being, what do you call it when you're super depressed after having a baby? I forgot. There's a name for it. There's an official name. But anyway, I was diagnosed with that too, and also medicated while nursing, blah, blah, blah. At some point, and I cannot pinpoint the specific moment, I got bored. I got bored of rehashing the story. I got bored of being referred to yet a different psychiatrist. I got bored of that experience. There was just this click of done. No more. I'm choosing something different. And there was no frustration or hatred of myself or anything like that in the, oh no, I've screwed this up. No. It was just this, this no longer serves me. Now what? And I began a period of reading and seeking, and I read all sorts of things. Many masters, many lives. And that was one of the first kind of woo things that I read. I just read and I explored and I found out about Ho'oponopono. I even went to see Ia Halakala Lulen in a class same weekend that I took a foundation and level 1 class. Then I went to the Ho'oponopono basics class. I was just willing to do or be or choose anything that would give me a sense of I'm not wrong. I didn't know that I'm already not wrong without having to look for everything. I'm already a miracle. I'm already a gift. I'm already something that's unique on the planet just by being born and being alive. I didn't know that. And so I was busy for many years and for many years in Access trying to fix myself. Because obviously there's something wrong with me. No, I don't have the perfect body or the perfect relationship or the perfect, financial situation or whatever the case is. So obviously I'm fucked up. So obviously I've got to be working on something, right, to fix myself. But that's an underlying premise that there is something to be fixed. But what if it is not about any fear of missing out, any fixing anything, and rather a celebration of being, the difference that you be. Each of us looks at the world in an entirely different way. Each of us has an entirely different experience. And each of us, if we're willing, is invited, is actually requested. And that's why we showed up on this planet, because our uniqueness contributes to something here. We don't know what that something is. For Jews, for example, we celebrate a Jewish birthday. And if you've been in my space or my groups or anything, you know that when it's my birthday, I bless everyone else, because we bring light to the world every day, really. Every day is a B day, I call it. But specifically on our birthday is the day that God kind of looked down and said, this energy, this awareness, this contribution is missing. We need a Rachel in the world, or we need a Idalina in the world, or we need an Angela in the world, or we need a Rita in the world. This is missing. And so we come in. And so there's different ways. I mean, this is just, the way that we look at it, but it's just so fascinating to me that we so frequently go to there's something wrong, rather than to celebrating the opposite of the question that Dr. Dane gave earlier, which is, what is right about me or about this situation that I'm not getting? And that's a question we use in Access Consciousness a lot. What is right about me? What is right about this that I'm not getting? Yet most people refuse to use that question because it speaks to there's something right about me. And we're so busy with really trying to not look at the gift or the rightness or the possibility in us. We look for, show me where I have a problem, and that I will work on fixing. That I'm willing to change. Not any of the stuff that I've judged as good, or not any of this other stuff. I'm just willing to fix this thing. I just want to patch this up. But you're not a fix-up project. You're beautiful beyond anything that you've ever imagined. And the only way to begin celebrating that for me is to open, really, to open even 1%, to begin to allow yourself to see beyond those fixed points of views that you may hold. So if you say, I've been medicated for almost 30 years and I have to check. Yes, I know I should be, I'm not watching the news, and I'm going to bars exchanges, and I'm doing body processes, and I'm doing all this stuff, and that's wonderful. And you can hear the but coming, right? You can hear the but that negates all of that, slaps it in the face, and goes back to, but this is a wrongness. But this is a wrongness. But there is no wrongness. You see, that's the huge sticky lie beneath it all. There is nothing wrong with you. You just happen to be unique, different, phenomenal, exuberant, more energetic, more intense, perhaps, than other people. And there is nothing wrong with that. It is an invitation for the living dead to begin to see that something else is available. Most artists see the world in a different way. Most change makers see the world in a different way because they don't buy the seductiveness of normalcy. They don't buy the limitedness of this reality. They always know something else is possible. Hence, one of the most gorgeous questions of Access Consciousness, what else is possible now that hasn't been possible beforehand? And then another sexy one that I love, I'm going to click on it here. Let's see if it'll let me. How does it get any better than that? What else is possible? What do you know that nobody else does? And that your knowing it is its very invitation into the world, because nobody else knows it. Nobody else sees things the way you do. And so rather than looking at yourself as something that you've got to keep throwing under the bus, that you've got to keep fixing somehow, that you've got to keep dishonoring and disrespecting because it's broken. You are not broken. even if you've been through 14 years of therapy, or in the lady's case, almost 30 years or whatever it is. And the diagnosis, with all due respect for all doctors everywhere, that's their perspective. And I appreciate it. They're very well educated. They've learned a lot. And they still don't know you as well as you do. What are the other things that I mentioned to her? So if somebody says, oh, you have this and you have to deal with this for the rest of your life, maybe, and maybe not. What else is possible beyond this? You could ask your body to contribute. You can ask the universe to contribute to having more ease with something, to have more clarity with what's going on, and to have your back. You know, this universe is an amazing universe. It has our back when we ask. And generally, we don't ask. That's one of the things I love about the rounds of 30-day ESBs with Dr. Dane, is that I've developed this muscle of asking daily, most days. I think there have been maybe 2 that I've missed over the last 60 days, but generally I'm in there and I'm asking, and I'm reading other people's asks as well. What if we allowed ourselves, rather than assuming anything, rather than concluding anything, rather than, signing, sealing, and delivering our fate as, well, it's hopeless because, this is just the way I am. What if that's a suggestion? But it isn't a sentence. What if it's a question mark and not a period? What if there's more available beyond anything that you've allowed yourself to even begin to imagine, consider, or contemplate before? So when you're not going from the inherent wrongness, when you're not stirring the pot of, this is wrong, this is terrible, I shouldn't have to do this, I shouldn't have to keep taking these pills, or I shouldn't have to keep going to therapy, or I shouldn't have this kind of relationship, or I shouldn't have this kind of body, or blah, 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 this is wrong, this is bad, this is terrible, blah, 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 blah. And it's all mushy and muddy and no clarity at all. And you're just in this whirlpool of yuck, stuck, and truly, what the fuck? When you take a breath, when you notice that and you go, no longer serves me, I'm choosing something different, and you let things be. What do I mean by let things be? I mean allow things to settle. Allow things to just allow yourself to kind of take a step back and observe. You'll notice that all of that stuff settles. You've got all your coffee grounds on the bottom of the pot, or the mud on the bottom of the puddle, or whatever you've mixed into your liquid kind of settles beneath. And you have this clear, open space above. You can see through the liquid. You can see with more clarity. Things kind of make sense, but not in a cognitive way. You just know what's my next step. You just begin to ease, truly to ease into being, to relax into being. Life and living is no longer a fight or a flight or anything else like that. It's you relax. And some people do different things, like they'll shake and those are all wonderful things. But it isn't about having to meditate or having to shake or even having to have your bars run. Though I'm sure all of those things are absolutely wonderful. It's the knowing that this too shall pass, and knowing that you are not that. It's outside of you. That's a thought. That's a point of view. That's a perspective. And it has colored and it has influenced everything that you have seen or created or chosen up to now. And you have a choice to choose beyond it. You have a choice to just relax into the spaciousness of your being and open up a tiny little space to begin to honor you, to have gratitude for you, to just get to know you and to know that you know. And so for me, the last couple of years, primarily the last couple of years post-COVID or around COVID, whatever, and my husband's diagnosis and everything else that's been going on. My mom went downhill, dealing with dementia and all sorts of stuff. But I've received the gift, the beautiful energy, the beautiful possibilities that are beneath and beyond seeing things as problems, seeing me as a problem. Back to Dr. Dane's question, what have you decided? And in case you didn't know, the word decide comes from the Latin decaedere, which means to cut off. So you cut off all possibilities when you decide something. You cut off anything that doesn't match whatever you have decided. So what have you decided is wrong about you that actually isn't? And what if you begin to just allow in just 1%? Can be 1% every 10 seconds, can be 1% a day, whatever works for you. What if you begin to allow in a possibility of your wellness and your well-being, which is actually natural, innate, and is who you be when you don't have all of that stuff running in your head? What would it be like to begin to allow that space of being you, the energy, the space, the consciousness, the beauty of you to shine through, and to begin to flavor, to color, to influence everything else around you? What have you decided is wrong about you and about your life that actually isn't? What is the underlying gift there? And what would it be like if you begin to celebrate your very being? And that is why I love the Being You classes. Though I've not been one to facilitate a whole lot, because I'm sorry, I just don't see where we're nearly as screwed up as we've been pretending to be. I love choosing for greater. I love choosing greater possibilities. I love honoring the wellness in each of us, the wealth of being of each of us, and not constantly running around there's something wrong. So anywho, I just received a question, and while I responded on the phone with a lady, I figured that it would be a contribution in here as well. And I've reached out in my Space of Possibilities group in Facebook and said, if anyone has any questions, and I'm spreading this out to anyone watching this on my profile as well. If anyone has questions or anything that they would like for me to address, obviously without your name or saying anything personal about you, I'm more than happy to just reach out and leave me a message, a voice note, or whatever else. I'm happy to contribute, and hopefully with that contribute to other people as well. Thank you. How does it get any better?